Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is AMA session. Is this number six? We're on number six. Wow. AMA session number six for the Cardano Budget Committee. So, welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today, our focus is for the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee of Intersect, and what their uh, goals are for 2025 and what Cardano development will look like into 2025. So thank you all for joining us today. I'm going to lay out a few of our meeting principles as we get started today. So first things first, please let's have one speaker at a time. That way we all have a chance to speak. If you have a question and you don't want to go on camera or on audio in order to give your question, you can give it in the chat room. Just put the word question before your question. So question colon and then your question so that we can keep track of all of those questions and make sure we answer them. Let's please stay on topic. Today's topic is the budget process and implementation, and it's specific to the TSC, the Technical Steering Committee today. And let's also keep in mind that we are going to time box our responses. If you have a question or comment, let's keep it to 2 minutes. If you would like to have your question answered, please raise your virtual hand here in the Zoom call and get in queue, and we will take each question as they come. And you are actually also allowed a follow-up question from every question you ask. So immediately, if you have a follow-up, that's perfectly fine. If you have additional follow-ups, please put your hand down, raise it again, go to the back of the queue, and we will happily get to your question again. But it gives everybody the space that they need to get all of their questions asked and answered. We are a 60-minute session today. Let's do our best to stay with it. We've actually been pretty good at that lately, so let's try to keep our track record up and going. These first few minutes here are just briefs and updates, and then the TSC is going to give a presentation. Following that presentation, then that will be the question and answer session. And the final 5 minutes of the session are my favorite part, where we talk about next steps, where are we going next, and what do we have to do to keep moving this process forward for all of us in Cardano. So our guidelines are: please be concise and specific, please maintain a professional tone, and let's build on our previous discussions. If you haven't watched any of the previous discussions, they are available on our YouTube channel. And let's focus on solutions, not problems. Let's find a way through this together, and let's respect each other's viewpoints. If you find yourself a person that talks a lot in a room, maybe try to fade back a little to give other people a chance. And if you don't talk very often, give it a shot. Get in there and talk a little bit. Tell us how you're feeling so that we can get your viewpoint as well. And with that, let's get this underway today. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, Lloyd. I will share my screen.
Right.
I will start with a brief introduction. So my name is Matt Davis. I work at Intersect. I lead a small team called Technical Operations. So we look after development of our core suppliers, our continuity suppliers, and what goes out in the node. Today we're going to talk about TSC budget. In order to start that, we're going to go right back to the beginning and look at the journey so far and some of the people that have been involved that aren't actually part of the TSC, just so we have a positive history of we understand what we're going to talk about today. So to start off with, I want to introduce a group called our Core Infrastructure Roadmap Working Group. They've been going since about August, maybe a little bit before that, talking about process. They have been collating potential projects in a backlog for the first part of this year, and you can read about all their work on the knowledge base. We'll send out this presentation and all the links afterwards. And also the product committee. So I believe in sessions 4 and 5, I'll be corrected, the product committee came and spoke about their goals. So we're really building on those two blocks of work, and which the TSC will take forward following your review. So the core infrastructure roadmap have created a backlog of projects. Product committee have created sessions to discuss and formulate goals. So now we have two artifacts. We have a series of goals and a series of projects. These are linked, and what we want to do is through community prioritization is put them in ranked order or a likely ranked order so we can agree what we spend our budget on in 2025. Exceptions and caveats always exist. I'll do my best to try and point these out as we go through, but we'll see what they are as we step through. So just to make sure everyone's on the same page and everyone feels that they can contribute and participate, I've put these links up again. Some of them you will know about, some of them you might have missed comms on, but there are ways to go back and still contribute to the product committee. And there are open processes and perpetual processes and continuous processes to submit and review projects to the CIL backlog. So they're on the left for the product committee and the right for the CIL processes. So we'll share those afterwards if you're not familiar with them. What we're going to largely talk about today is prioritization. So we will introduce to you a number of the goals, which hopefully you've heard about. We'll introduce to you a number of the projects that have been suggested to date. Now, that's probably going to be new to a number of you. We'll step through them. And these are goals, or these are projects which support the goals, which are likely to contribute to their outcomes. And I use the word likely really carefully because we can't, at this stage, guarantee outcomes. Projects have risks, some known, some unknown. However, we believe, the CIR, the Products Committee, the TSC, that these are projects which could contribute to the desired outcomes. And then the key part, we will then ask you, the community, to provide feedback on preference and prioritization on the projects discussed. Like I said a moment ago, these are envisaged to be continuous processes. We don't want big cliff edge of activities where this becomes a huge piece of work at year end or particular pieces of places in time in the budget process. We want opportunities throughout 2025 to review goals, review projects, and keep an up-to-date backlog of the community prioritizations. So only now will I introduce the TSC. So once these goals and projects have been prioritized, then the role of the TSC really comes to the front of the discussion. So the TSC's remit is to oversee technical implementation once we have prioritized that backlog. So I've put up some of the bullet points from the TSC's purpose, which is to recommend the execution details of the backlog, drafting milestones, deliverables, acceptance criteria, and facilitating tender award process. So as you can see, the TSC isn't making firm decisions or assumptions on the community about what will be done. It's mostly focused on how it will be done. So the key part is that community prioritization, which I want to talk you through today. The next thing we want to just run through, just to make sure we have a common understanding, is the scope of the TSC. So as it is today, the TSC is looking at an area that we've coined continuity. And I appreciate that word has semantics and some people have a difference of opinion of it, but we'll go through our definition. So Cardano continuity is defined or referred to as any approved technical services need to fix or build current areas of the Cardano blockchain. So continuity in this definition can include such things as 1694 governance and upgrades to key components such as ledger, consensus, networking, and API. Generally, we consider this as something that affects the node or potentially everyone. Unfortunately, innovation style scope, so individual projects and dApps, associated funding, will not be handled in today's session. So there's a delineation there. It's not to say that the TSC will never look at these areas, but we feel it's a priority, firstly and fundamentally, to focus on core Cardano and the node and applicable extras that come with that, such things like standardization that could affect swathes of the community or the ecosystem. So appreciate I rattled through that pretty quickly, but we're now going to go into introducing the goals and then some of the projects that come with these goals. And at the end, we'll run through, again, all the links and all the ways to help participate and get involved with that prioritization.
Thanks, Matt. And just real quickly, we'll pause here for a moment to let everybody know that these goals, if you were able to attend the product sessions, you'll recognize these goals. These are the goals that were outlined in the product session that we've had the last two times. So I'll let you just go ahead and continue, Matt, but I just want to make sure that everybody had that additional context for those that weren't able to make those previous calls.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah. So again, I'm going to read them out verbatim, right? So these are the goals that the product committee have worked on over the last couple of months. I have taken their words verbatim exactly from a copy of their work about a week ago. So if they have made some slight wording changes in the last 7 or 8 days, I might not have captured them. But really it sets the tone, right? So the problems we have to solve, Cardano has qualities that make it competitive and unique. However, as of now, the application of these qualities has not resulted in wide usage. So we have, within the TSC and the CIR and the product committee, mapped a number of the projects that have been put forward, which could potentially help solve this goal. And they are here. So Ouroboros Laos, transaction finality improvements, pricing models, Babel fees, proofful use of work, and partner chains. So there's a lot of terms there. There's an awful lot of new words there, probably. And obviously, there's an awful lot of detail. What are these projects? What stage are they at? What are their merits? What are they going to deliver? And unfortunately, if we did that today and we dived into each of these projects, we would be here for an infinite amount of time. Each project is probably a whole hour workshop with Lloyd by itself. So what we're going to do is we're just going to introduce by name what the projects are, but all this information has gone up online on the knowledge base over the last week. Some of it's been there a lot longer, but I appreciate, we're maturing. We're always trying to make things more accessible and more ease. There have been some significant changes in the last week, and I'll point that out at the end. We'll actually go to the knowledge base and flick through and look at the information. So they are some of the projects that we feel could contribute quite heavily to this goal. The other thing to point out at this juncture is some of these projects do probably, in all honesty, support more than one goal. So this is a cut to force a conversation and help choose prioritization. There are many projects which affect many different parts. So moving on to the next goal that the product committee have outlined is to make it easier to build on Cardano and to use. So how might we solve that? So processes that reduce barriers or simplify building processes. And there are a number of projects which have been put forward with potential outcomes that could solve this goal. So further development of Hydra or Mithril, timeless market, decentralized oracles, and stable coins. And again, at the end, we'll visit the knowledge base and we'll go through what those projects looks like and the details that have been provided. Next goal, so there's 5 of these goals, I apologize. Problem to solve, how might we make Cardano meet the needs of apps? So how do we help apps and dApps build and develop on our ecosystem? And again, there is a series of projects that have been put forward through the CIR working group that could have a real tangible benefit or input on those developers. So project put forward for the architecture node refresh, some tools to help verification and property-based testing, and some analyzer tools. There are others as well. These are the ones, like I said, that have been submitted thus far. Another goal that resonated quite heavily with the technical world was reliable decentralized governance. So how might we make the new Cardano governance stronger? And again, there are a number of technical projects which have been put forward, which could have a real viable impact on this Cardano goal. So governance improvements are preset. So general term, but we have defined the project. There's some projects around identity and script management, stake pool incentive schemes, and funding for parameter committee research and the PCP process, which goes on in the background. Another goal, as simple as it might sound, is effectively maintain the status quo. So how might we ensure Cardano remains trustworthy, reliable, and competitive? It's the main reason a lot of us are here. So again, there are some business as usual type projects that maintain or improve current capabilities of Cardano. So work such as log structure merge trees, transaction monitoring, ledger app rewrite, tiered pricing models, and core maintenance. So again, a lot of projects. We have 23 projects that are slated, and we will show you those briefly at the end, how they look on the knowledge base and the information that comes with them. There's also another topic in the budget that we want to introduce to the community and have the community have say on, which is within the TSC. I believe Lloyd has and the budget team have said about this for an overarching budget perspective. But within the TSC, there is large support from the TSC to have a proportion of the budget uncommitted. And I just want to explain what that means. So in any large-scale delivery or project or program, there are unforeseen eventualities and events that happen in year or later on that we can't yet foresee. So one that happened this year was the emerging SIP 69. And luckily, we had the resource and the budget available to pivot fairly quickly and implement it. So the TSC has recommended that around 30% of our budget in this budget cycle be kept back and not yet be allocated to specific projects. Like I said, everyone's going to have their own views on that. And we will ask you this question in the feedback and the prioritization as to what you think it should be. The one key thing to maybe point out is that second from last sentence. So The greater proportion that we save now means the greater proportion of options we have in year or in the future to do further rounds of prioritization or ask for feedback and community involvement. If the number's low and we commit to all of our projects now, then we're set for the year. If we hold money back, we might be able to do further prioritizations at half year or this time next year. So really, we've put a suggestion out there, and in the feedback, we'll ask for your comments on how you feel. A, what that number should be, and B, how it's utilized or how it's spent. So more details, again, lots of reading. I do apologize for that. So again, there's a few links there that you would have seen before. So details for the budget committee, details for the products committee, details for the CIR process, and then there's two new links in yellow. So I will just drop out of the presentation for a second, and we'll go to the knowledge base, and I'll show you those two links so you can see the new information which has gone up. So in transparency, this whole presentation that we've gone through today is now live on our knowledge base on the TSC. It's almost the same word for word. And then what we have done for all the projects that have been submitted through that CIR process and continue to be reviewed and submitted through that CIR process, we have created project cards. So a project card is a little thing we made up to hold all the important details about a potential project, so the community can see it, understand it, and make an informed choice. So for every project, we have one of these little cards, which has an abstract of a description, a problem statement, a benefit, some project details, so pertinent things you need to know, what the likely deliverable is, how ready it is, what stage of development it's in, if there's any more SIPs or CPSs or white papers that link to it. I'm very pleased to say a lot of our project champions and sponsors have also created little videos that introduce the topic. So we have all this information here, and then we also have our roadmap. So as you can see, all the projects we spoke about today in the presentation are up with their abstracts, their benefits, all the pertinent project details. And like I said, the vast majority of them have videos when it decides to load. Hence why I'm not going to go through every single project in its detail today, because quite frankly, there are too many. And depending on where you sit on the ecosystem, what you're interested in, some of them might mean nothing to you, some might mean a lot. But all the information for all the potential projects we're putting forward for prioritization is up online, and you can read through that before making any decisions. 30 seconds, I'll flip back into presentation. So they're the two yellow links. So that knowledge base and the potential project backlog. Basically, everything we said today is public knowledge on the knowledge base. And this is why we're here, really, right? So before the TSC can put together that final view on what the backlog should be for next year, we want your say. So in time-honored tradition, we're going to ask you to fill out a survey and ask you several key questions. So what goals do you believe are the highest, lowest, short-term goals, long-term goals, most important projects, and probably quite key, have we missed anything? Are there any projects out there in the ecosystem, any SIPs or CPS statements you feel haven't had the traction that they need, that should be put forward for this list because you believe they're key for 2025?
Okay, can I pause you right there again, Matt? Let's go back, because what you're saying there is super important, but you go back one more slide, and I want everybody to see this. It's right above those two yellow marks. Full details of the CIR process is here, but if you have a project you'd like to submit for consideration, you can do so here. That link's not in yellow. It's been there for a minute, but I want to make sure everybody here sees it. So if you do find a missing project, the link is right there. You can submit projects that are missing to this. So, and sorry to interrupt, Matt, but I wanted to make sure
No,
that
it's a
point
really important,
got caught
point,
as
right?
well. And
Yeah.
but then go ahead and continue, and let's move on.
No, we do expect through this process, as we come to sort of the business end of prioritization and we really understand this budget process, that people are going to come out with projects that they haven't had an opportunity or didn't know they could submit. So we are prepared for that. And we want you to come forward, right? We want it to be a balanced slate. We want it to have all the projects in consideration. So if you follow that link, it goes through to the knowledge base. There's a really clean explainer of this whole process, how it goes from products to CIR into the potential roadmap and into these prioritization surveys. So we're trying to be as transparent as we can and give you links to participate all the way through it. So if there are projects out there, please submit them. and we'll turn them around. They'll be reviewed by the CIR group. It's a public group. It has members of TX Pipe and Cardano Foundation and M Labs and some private individuals that help review those projects. And they are actually looking for more people to join the group. So if you're interested in that, and again, you can go to their space on the knowledge base and they have ways to contribute. So we are expecting more projects to be added, and we want them to be added, right? We want healthy choice and competition. So like I said, we're going to ask you a short survey to help us choose what projects you believe should be in the backlog for 2025. We can't, although we have put estimates in terms of FTE next to a lot of the projects, like I said at the beginning, the TSC's job isn't to choose what we do, it's to choose how we do it. Your job as a community is to guide us in what you want Cardano to be in 2025 and 2026 and even beyond that. So please go, again, the links to this are on the deck that will be shared afterwards. They're on the knowledge base as well. I think there's about 7 questions. It should only take you 15, 20 minutes to actually fill out the survey. However, to read all those individual project slates is probably a considerable piece of time if you want to watch all the little videos and read all the details and follow all the further reading that come with them. So we'll have the survey, the initial survey up for 2 weeks. We will publish what results, what guidelines, what prioritization from the community looks like after that time. And then we'll take action as appropriate. If we believe we're at a suitable place in the budget cycle and we have enough community input, we will share that prioritization. The TSC will top it and tally it with any technical risks or issues or dependencies or resourcing constraints into something which we think is manageable and doable over 2025, and we'll share that with you. But like I said, the anticipation is this isn't a one-time activity. Yes, it's the first time we've had to do it. Yes, it's the first budget cycle, but we want prioritization to be, something that happens every quarter or every half year. So we always know what the next most important thing is to do. So there will be opportunities in 2025 to revisit prioritization.
Thank you so much, Matt.
And that's
Appreciate it.
about it.
Yeah. All right. So that is a lot to take in. We can give everybody a few minutes to absorb from that. Really appreciate the presentation. Guys, this is what it looks like for the rubber to meet the road here. This is exactly what building a budget is going to look like every single year. We have a lot of moving parts, a lot of different committees and groups that have to bring together their particular expertise and help align what Cardano should do each year. And so this was an especially important one because obviously our core development and the continuity of what we know of is Cardano, and the tools that we all rely on to be a part of Cardano is here. So, but I'm happy now to open the floor. Do you have questions for? We have Matt, we have Duncan, I see Kevin Hammond talking in the chat. So we have at least 3 members of TSC here. And if I've missed anyone, please say hello, raise your hand. I'm happy to acknowledge any other TSC members that we have here as well. And we obviously have some members of the budget committee here as well. I see Chris Kowalski's here, Lawrence is here as well as myself. So we have at least 3 of us here from budget.
We have Giorgio from the core infrastructure roadmap team as well. I'm assuming it's the same Giorgio, but
all right, Giorgio from core infrastructure roadmap. I see Lorenzo from product. So we have members here from Intersect who are working in all of these areas. So whatever questions you might have, now is the time. So we're happy to take them.
Can you hear me?
Hi, Giorgio. Yes, I can.
Yeah. Yes. Good day, y'all. One question I have, as you mentioned, I'm in the roadmap working group, and the stablecoin and the Oracle are still in the triage. They've not been triaged yet. So, could you elaborate, maybe somebody from the TSC, what's the rationale for them being included in the presentation? Yeah, that's the question.
I could answer it. It may be a mistake. I was informed that they had been triaged. If they haven't, we will remove them.
No, they have not. They were supposed to be triaged yesterday, but they withdrew. They did not present yet. And so, yeah, I was wondering, then.
It might have been my haste to make sure as much was included as possible. We will caveat those to say that they are pending formal recommendation for inclusion.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Thank you.
giving a bit of airtime now is probably good, but as you're quite correct, Giorgio, until they've been triaged, we shouldn't be looking at them as things that can be voted on for formal prioritization.
There's a good piece of nuance for the process there that in order for something to even make it to this far, it has to go through a process, and that's part of what I was pointing out with Matt that earlier, that you have a link that you follow if you have items that are core related, core curious, things like that would fit into the TSC's remit and what that looks like. So you make sure that that's part of the job in budget, is making sure things are going to the right place. And so that is one of the things there as well. There is a process to get to be one of these projects, and so we want to make sure we get the right people heading in the right direction there.
If I can share my screen again really quickly, Lloyd, I'll just, these pages we put up at the beginning of last week in a couple of places on the knowledge base. So again, this information did exist, but I do take on board, and it's one of the reasons why we sort of tweaked it, is to make it clearer. This is the whole participation. So step one, understand the goals, understand what we're trying to resolve. Step two, learn about the core infrastructure roadmap process, which Giorgio and Ben Hart from MLabs kindly run. Submit your proposal, quite straightforward. Again, there's a form. They have other details on their site that you can talk to them. There are other methods rather than that. Track your proposal's progress. So once it gets triaged, it gets added to the backlog, and then engage in discussions to participate in that prioritization. And then that comes out at the end. So it's 5 steps. It's quite straightforward. These explainers have simplified explainers, hopefully. Like I said, went up last week to go through those steps. And of course, there are other ways to participate, right? There are other groups and other parts of the ecosystem. But hopefully that makes it, quite straightforward. You see the process. We've worked hard to make sure it's not a monopoly. So not one committee has lots of power. As you see, it's product committee suggesting goals. It's the CIR group validating that projects have scope and benefits. And it's ultimately the community's work in prioritization. And then it's the TSCs to suggest how then it's actually implemented into node or repositories or codes that people can use.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you, Matt. Appreciate the extra context there. And thank you, Giorgio, for bringing that up. Really appreciate it. Let's move on. Ronald has a question. Hey, Ronald, how are you today?
Hello, everyone. Thank you. I'm good, Duan. I have a question related to this backlog. As I can see, a lot of things are brought to the table. How is the process basically that partners can be involved in these things that can be chosen for on priority? Or is this already a made decision?
Sorry,
Go ahead,
just
Matt.
for clarity, was that in terms of submitting projects or helping prioritize them?
Actually, that's helping executing them.
Mm.
It seems to me like it's already a made decision that the people that are working on these packages are already decided on. So
Okay.
No, we can answer that. So it's not, is the simple answer. So it does say on the form when you submit a project that just because you're the person that submitted this project, it doesn't give you a right to necessarily work on the project. So once that prioritization has been done, all of our projects will be put through an open tender through the shared services team within Intersect. Again, there's knowledge up on that on the Intersect website. Anyone who believes they can fulfill one of the projects will be, free to submit a tender. Those tenders will be reviewed by the TSC and then an appropriate applicant chosen. So yeah, it's a small caveat. Just because someone submits an idea doesn't necessarily give them the right to then implement it. There are lots of circumstances in the ecosystem where the people that have the ideas might not necessarily have the technical expertise to actually implement them. So it works both ways. So yeah, hopefully that clears it up. There will be an open tender process for any project that the TSC goes through.
That answers my question, Matt. Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and just to add on to that as well, I mean, for the core services within Intersect, we're obviously still building the processes and the details behind this, obviously, but we are looking at putting them up on our website. So any contracts going out for tender in this space will be there for everyone to register their awareness or willingness to know more. And obviously, the TSC will be managing your applications to those pieces of work and bringing you and your companies into the discussions with the TSC. So it may not be perfect from day one next year, just to make sure everyone's aware, but we are looking at trying to create that opportunity for any company to raise awareness, willingness to do work in the space, and then bring you into an appropriate meeting with the TSC and the techies to discuss it. So it's still work in progress, but there is, if you look on the budget process on the budget website, budget committee, there is a, how does a committee manage a budget? And in there is what I call the procurement stake, how the committee will go through that whole life cycle. So it is documented, it is still work in progress. So please bear with us.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that just because a project has been proposed with a particular shape doesn't mean that the project that's selected has to be exactly of that form. So depending on the bid, there might be details that change. We're not going in with a fully formed project here. You've got to deliver the project exactly as specified. There will be a negotiation process to make sure we get the best possible outcome from the projects that are delivered.
Thank you, Kevin. I like to use the analogy here of that, next year I'm going to buy a car. So I have an idea that I'm going to spend between $30,000 and $50,000 on a car, and I know roughly the features I want. I want an SUV or I want a minivan, or, I know roughly what I want, but I don't have to know every fine detail, and I don't have to know the VIN number of the vehicle I'm purchasing right now. I just have to know the basics of what I want to capture, and then as we move through the tendering process, we'll obviously know much more about what it is that we're going to get at that point. So, hope that helps.
And of course, it doesn't have to be a single company or a single group of a single set of developers that are bidding for the projects either. The consortia can form to bring together the right skill set across the community. So this is an open process which is designed to make as much advantage of the community skill set as we possibly can.
Yeah, there's nothing stopping someone from, well, I'm sorry, Ronald, just one second. There's nothing stopping a community member from bidding on a job and bringing in other community members of any form. IO engineering could take a job and then hire people from another firm to support them through that job. You do have a point of contact. That's the idea of the project champion who has to maintain the project throughout, but that does not preclude them from also further expanding the job out. And it's nothing stopping TSC from taking a big job, breaking it up into smaller chunks and giving out smaller chunks. All of those are possibilities right now, and none of that's precluded in the process that we're working on. We're open to how the community wants to handle these things so that we can make the best use of the community's time and engage it to develop the things we need developed. But go ahead, Ronald, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I basically said, well, thank you for the further explanation. It's clear to me now how the process works. Thanks.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Giorgio, go ahead with your next question.
Yes, one question maybe on the going through the items in the roadmap working group. There were some that were good, let's say, ROI in terms of FTEs to reward, and some were a bit less appealing because are you planning on disclosing also the financial impact of each item, or in terms of FTEs, or not?
So
I think it would help to have like this item would be X amount of FTEs and this to compare or to.
Yeah. But yeah, on the project cards, for the vast majority of them, we have put up what the indicative FTEs are, right? We understand that to help demonstrate value, you kind of need to understand effort or value of a potential project. Do I want to spend that much to get that outcome? There has been a debate, and it's still an open question in the TSC around if we should show dollar amounts, and there's pros and cons, just to be clear within the TSC if we do that. So it's not a final decision. At the moment, we've showed the FTEs. As we evolve and we mature these processes, there could be elements of project information that someone might suggest to the committee, oh, it'd be really handy to know X or Y about every single project to help me make my choice or put forward what I think is a good prioritization. So at the moment, where provided, we put the FTE, and it's still an ongoing discussion and maturity around some of the other sort of project facts that we should or shouldn't include. So yeah, obviously dollar amount is quite an emotive subject. The pro to that is how much something costs, but like Lloyd said, it's really hard to pinpoint, and we don't want to stifle competitive bidding. So if we say a car is worth 50,000, we're going to get people that bid 50,000. So FTE is what we've included in the vast majority of projects. We say in the feedback form under prioritization or just on the knowledge base, if you think there's something missing, tell us, and we'll do our best to include it.
Yeah, if I put my budget between 30 and 50,000 and I spend 52,000 on the car, then I'm holding my head in my hand. Oh man, what did I do? If I came closer to 35,000 and got the features I wanted, then I'm pretty happy. But the only way we can do that is with a competitive bidding, a tendering process. We're not gonna get that if we say we're going to spend 50,000 on this. So there's your pluses and minuses for where we're at in the process, but we're faithfully executing the process and seeing what the outcome is at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you, Giorgio.
Yeah, but to be clear, there's in the prioritization feedback form, there is an open question feedback on any part of this process or information that has been provided. And again, on the knowledge base, there are email addresses and links to do that also if you find even the information is too confusing or misleading or not enough detail or too much detail. We can only be guided by what feedback we get. So please tell us.
Right. Well, the floor is open. This is your time. If you have questions for the TSC regarding the budget, and we've got James. Hey, James, how are you today?
Good, guys. How you going? So I'm just trying to get my head a bit around this. If we look at Catalyst, I might like to work out where it's sitting in the ecosystem. Catalyst, we could say, is more startups, and that's their own projects. And then whereas this stuff would then be projects that is then owned by Intersect, and as we were discussing, Lawrence, they would then be open sourced within our own GitHub repos. So it'd be community owned and community paid for. And then whereas Catalyst is a bit more, I've got an idea, I'm a startup, I want to go that way. Maybe it doesn't exactly relate to the core architecture. And then the foundation does whatever they do over there with nation states, hopefully, if they're doing that job. Am I correct in thinking that's how we should sort of put it in our own mind?
Yes, if you're looking for my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, Catalyst is essentially closed source. Everything that we do through this process under the TSC will sit under those Intersect repositories, and barring responsible disclosure, unless it's a security bit of code, it's open source and for the benefit of the community.
Yeah.
So not private endeavors, for want of a better term.
And it's more focused on that core, the core chain, the core node, or the stuff, the usability to make it more usable for those guys that then through Catalyst go and build these other projects.
Correct.
That's
yes.
where the focus should be. Yeah. Cool.
Like I said, it is grey. We're definitely, if it is a core element, node consensus, something to do with ledger. We've also had suggestions from sort of the wallets working group, just as an example, on sort of standardization. So things that make it easier for all wallet developers. That's potentially an item to consider if they were up for developing it and sharing it in a way which is open.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, James. It's, again, getting at some of that really good nuance of where some lines are, or not even lines, just kind of ranges that we're trying to stay within. So appreciate the question. All right, Phil, how are you, Phil?
Yeah, hi everyone. Not a question, just some feedback to say I really like the way that the TSC have presented that, the way that the knowledge base has laid it out, and it would be great if all the other committees could put their programs of work structured that way as well. So, yeah, just well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And yep, I definitely agree. This is a great job from the TSC. Really appreciate the hard work that they put into this.
Just to caveat, TSC and the CIR, Giorgio and Ben and the team that have been working on that over the last couple of months, right? They had and have been working on this information for a long time, so it was very easy to make it presentable. So it's a team effort from more than just one committee or working group.
Nothing illustrates this idea that we're still building the car as we're driving down the road or building the boat as we're sailing. Nothing illustrates it more than to see all of these different teams work finally coming to a point where we're all starting to see the elements of all of this. It's gone together to get here. This was no way any one person could do this. This is what a decentralized ecosystem looks like in practice. That's what we're doing here. So different parts working in tandem to get to the goal that we're all trying to reach. So I'm excited. So thank you, Phil. Gentama, hello.
Hello, happy Tuesday. So I have a future. It's a future thing question, but has the technical steering committee thought how they will bring in people outside the ecosystem? Like how will they market the tender process so that we bring in people who are outside the crypto ecosystem into the crypto ecosystem? Have they thought about it, or how will they reach out to people? Will it be have them have their own websites for let's say social accounts where people can get the information, or it will all just be on the GitHub and in Intersect Discord? What's the process to expand outside a small crypto bubble? Has they thought about?
Yeah, I'd say that. There's at least two things we can do, right? Is number one, the procurement and tender process will be online, so you should see that. The second thing is around participation. So we've spoke about this in the TSC. It's not a firm decision yet, but idealistically, what we want is a number of kind of contractual elements or ideas or clauses that incentivize known developers for bringing on unknown or smaller developers to encourage knowledge sharing and growth. So this is no mean, definitive or it's going to happen. This is just an example. But if a well-known developer that has, say, been working on a part of Cardano for the last 2 or 3 years puts forward a bid to one of these project tenders, and they include within their bid that they will bring on 2 or 3 new developers or independents or a smaller company, maybe from a different blockchain or from the Web2 space, that want to get involved. And obviously we might view or rate that tender or that bid with more points than we would someone that doesn't. So what we want is a little armory, a little toolkit of those kind of elements that we can suggest that people include, and also that we either rate or we mark more highly if they do include them in their submissions. So we're really cognizant of that. And it was touched on earlier as well around some of these are really big projects. So we need to be clever in how we break them down, making sure that there's opportunities for different companies of different sizes and different expertise, right? So we know we have some amazing companies out there, but their focus is quite narrow. It's really boutique. It's really specialist. And they might not be able to bid for like a whole project. So we need to incentivize that, some of these opportunities are carved up and shared.
Thank you, Matt.
Follow-up question. So I come from a marketing working group in Intersect. So how do we reach out to you guys if you want you guys to be present at some events in the future when we will be hosting, and how we can help you in marketing, all the stuff that you are preparing so that we can bring in eyes on the technical part of the ecosystem. So have you thought about, working with marketing group of the Intersect, or like anything about that or something?
No firm plans, but we definitely can. So obviously I'm here. You can reach out to me and we can put those conversations in place between the TSC and the marketing working group, or Duncan Suter is on the call as the secretary as the TSC. So we'll take your details and we can touch base with you offline, and we can certainly do it. So we will be, leveraging the Intersect shared communication team for this work, and other working groups or marketing groups as appropriate, right? There is definitely not an intention to do this in a silo.
Yeah, one way we can definitely benefit from marketing is in disseminating the results and the outcomes of the projects that are funded. So that's definitely something where we can work with the marketing group.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you, Gintama, for the question. I will add that if you take a look at the Cardano Budget Process Luma board, you will see that on Thursday, we actually have at 11 a.m. on Thursday, Eastern time. So sorry, I have to pull that to UTC. But we have the Cardano Budget Process number 7 with the MCC and the OSC. And part of, not to steal any of OSC's thunder, but part of their presentation does include information to your question, Gintama, about how one of the paths that there are for developers to come in and from wherever they're coming in from, and being able to participate in the community and begin to participate in the blockchain space effectively as developers. So there's some interesting work there to review on Thursday if you have the opportunity to join there.
Yeah, and it's also the MCC covers a lot of the marketing activities as well at the moment. So again, additional marketing activities will come through via the MCC presentation.
There you go. So action-packed for Thursday if you've got the time.
Yeah. Any more questions from anyone, or is that going to have to answer a question from me?
That's not fair. Go on then.
We got 5 more minutes, so go for it, Lawrence. Lawrence has great questions for everybody.
So, as we know, Matt, because a lot of the work that you're doing is around hard forks, and you're looking at making a number of changes into next year. So, with the hard fork being delayed, as we know, beyond next year, we know that there's a funding challenge for next year. So, how is the TSC focusing on the prioritization of work for 2025 with the consideration of the funding challenge?
So we are obviously semi-dependent on community feedback and prioritization, so that will help. The TSC members are evaluating our core maintenance contracts into necessity and must-have items, and they'll be putting forward recommendations for sort of interim funding. And again, it's being savvy or clever, whatever the right word is, in how we agree contracts to make sure that they're breakable or short-term or rolling, so we have opportunity to pivot once future funding is secured or not secured.
Cool, thank you. And I guess again, as no one else has raised their hand yet. So thinking ahead as you have this utopian, as you've evolved the process and you have people coming in and tendering for pieces of work. Does the TSC thought about how you manage conflicts of interest and disputes between vendors bidding for pieces of work? Have you got a review of that yet?
So we've spoke about conflict of interest and a recuse policy within the TSC members. So again, I don't think we've published this yet, but we can do. It's in the draft. We had a workshop with some of the TSC members. This was a few weeks ago, so the new electees we've yet to have it as a re-agenda item. So we will wait for their comment before publishing about what levels that recuse is needed for. So what I mean by that is at what point do you have to withdraw your vote and withdraw yourself from the conversation if there's a conflict of interest? So we spoke about the differences between being potentially an engineer in an organization to being a sales director in an organization. And obviously one of those is more likely to have sort of issues around conflicts of interest and how we handle it. So that recuse sort of policy will come out and will be part of the terms of reference of the
I've got a follow-up to that one. Similarly, you're going to have an awful lot of code coming back in as the work is progressing. That's the goal, right? So someone's got to look at that code that's not the developers. How do you handle that side of things?
So what we did this year that worked quite well, and I appreciate it was evolved throughout the year, is we had a milestone acceptance form. So whenever a developer of any nature stated they had completed a milestone or a deliverable, they had to write up and attest to what they'd delivered, and a suitable engineer from another organization had to review it and co-sign or attest as well that they had reviewed it. And then Intersect would also sign that sort of form as a triple check just to prove that had been done. So we will do that again this year for all of our core milestones, and we've sort of ideated around how we bring the community into that in a wider sense. So we had issues this year around some of the novated contracts and confidentiality clauses to make it really hard to share some of that information. But in our contracts going forward, we will alleviate that, and we will share those milestone acceptance forms more broadly. And we have spoke about potentially doing something. I don't know how this translates to other regions or countries, but in the UK is a local planning type terminology that if you do something, you have to sort of put it out there for 20 or 30 days and field any comments or critique you get back before the item is considered closed. So we might do something similar to that. Again, this is yet to be formalized by the TSC. So any milestone, we'll have this double attestation, the engineer stating what they've done in a layman's way, so it's easily understandable. These repositories, these pull requests, these test results. Have another engineer with an appropriate technical background to verify it, and then release that information to the community for a period of time. And then after that, whatever that period of time may be, to confirm the matter is closed and submitted and pay the milestone.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate the follow-up there and the great questions. I am looking at the time. We are down to our final 5 minutes. So we are down to closing thoughts from, I would like to give a minute for the TSC, closing thoughts from you guys, Kevin, Matt, Duncan, any final thoughts that you'd like to leave the community with today as we wrap up?
Only just to say, we're open for feedback, right? That's how we learn. So if there's something not just related to this, but in the TSC in general, our email address is technical-steering-committee@Intersect. Bit of a mouthful, but it says what it says on the tin. You can find it on the knowledge base. Yeah, feel free to ask questions. We will always do our best to answer them.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I just wanted to emphasize that this is the community's chance to have its say on the future of Cardano. So please take that opportunity, seize it with both hands, and let's go forward together.
Thank you, Kevin. All right. And on that note, thank you, Lorenzo, for dropping the Technical Steering Committee's link for their link to the knowledge base. I'm also going to drop the bit.ly link to the Intersect Cardano Budget Committee so you can see our knowledge base. That bit.ly link is there. Feel free to share that far and wide because we are trying to get as much of this great information into the hands of as many people as possible within the community. We cherish the feedback. We're looking for all of the responses that we can get from the community on all of the elements of the budget as we're moving forward. As I stated earlier, our next meeting is on November 21st, Thursday. If you go to the Luma board, you can sign up for that. There is also an open session it's a very, very late U.S. Eastern Time open session because we're trying to capture as much as we can of the broader community and give everybody in every time zone an opportunity. So that Thursday evening, there's also a 9 p.m. Eastern Time session that will hopefully reach, it's 3 a.m. UTC, I think, to hopefully reach as far and wide an audience as we can, make sure we're in every time zone we can be to answer as many questions as we can. So 2 AMAs on Thursday and more to come. We are scheduling more even into December as we will continue this process of socializing the 2025 Cardano annual budget. So thank you all so much for your time today. I appreciate all of your time and attention, and I really look forward to seeing each and every one of you at any of our upcoming AMA sessions. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Cool. Thank you, everyone.